Okay, Rabbi, today we'll be learning with Shem Daf from Vav the days. We have a few lines outstanding from Vav Amid Aleph, so we'll just look at the last few lines of that from Vav Amid Aleph. Where we're on for it actually is we did the Ein Bein Tkufa L'Tkufa El Tisha V'Echet Yoim V'Sheva Shoyes U'Machzeh. We did that between one Tkufa and another Tkufa. But the Tkufas are the times. It's the equinox and with the equinox and the solstice. So these are the Tkufas actually, and so when the year of the sun is divided into 4 parts. So each one is a different tkufa, and each one is of 91 days and 7.5 hours. Okay, so that is each tkufa. Remember that we discussed that each year is 365 days and a quarter exactly. That's according to the cheshbon of Shmuel. There is another cheshbon, but this is Shmuel's cheshbon. And then it says ve'ein tkufa. What it means is that basically, just to notice that the difference between what the tkufa and another tkufa is in 7.5 hours. Actually, the difference between, if we talk in terms of weekdays, so in terms of weekdays, so it'll always be that the tkufa will be 30 hours later, which is 30 hours late. Sorry, the tkufa will be okay. Sorry, the tkufa will be 7.5 hours later. Okay, so the tkufa is 7.5 hours later. Now, since the tkufa is 7.5 hours later, so the thing is, we have there is some sort of cheshbon, some sort of calculation, which is about the 7 the 7 mazoles. These 7 mazoles, which we're referring to, is actually the 5 planets, which we observe as having a different rotational cycle, which we can observe with the naked eye, of having a different rotational cycle than the rest of the stars. So that's the 5 planets. Then you have the sun and the moon. So the sun, the moon, and the 5 planets which we're able to observe with the naked eye, that is 7. And these all are called mazolas. And it works out that the 7 days of the 7 days of the week are also corresponding to these 7 mazolas, and therefore, and it's considered that the first hour of Sunday is the mazel of the sun, and hence the name Sunday. So even in the English words, you also have this leftover of, in the language of English, we still have this concept that that the day Sunday is called sun, connected with the sun, because the first hour of Sunday is the first hour of Sunday is considered the mazel of the sun, and then Monday is considered the moon's. The first hour of Monday is considered the mazel of the moon. So it's I think when the world was created, that's how it was. So originally, as the world is created, so that's what it is. So Sunday is the first mazel, is the first hour of the mazel of the sun. Monday, the first hour is the mazel of the moon, and Tuesday is the other ones. I think in the French names, you have a bit more. Some of the other mazolas are mentioned as in regards to the other days. The thing is that each hour the mazel changes. So what it works is, if the first hour is the sun, the second hour is going to be the moon, and the third hour is going to be belonging to another planet. So that means throughout the 24 hours, you're going to every hour you're going to have a few times, was at least 3 times you're going to have all the malos zolas, because every hour is another mazel, and then of course every hour is another mazel, and that's right. And over the week is 7. The week is 7 days. So over the week, you'll always get back to the original point. I said that it's when the world is created. No, it's not when the world is created, because you'll always go back to the original point, because the week is divided into 7. So you start off on the first hour on Sunday is the sun, and then you go through all 7 mazolas. Then you go again. Then it'll work out to be that the first one on Monday will be the moon, and on the other ones will be another one of the mazolas. But it will all go back to its original position, because since it's a multiple of 7, so it will all go back. Once the week is over, it will go back to the original position. So so it's always like that. So it's always Sunday is the first hour, is the sun, and Monday always is the moon, and the rest of the week is the same thing. And what he's saying here basically is that since the tkufa is 7.5 hours distance from one tkufa to the other, so that means that really it's only going to be half an hour later in the mazel. So one tkufa from another, because since the tkufa, let's say, of Nis was in a certain time, and the tkufa of Tammuz is 7.5 hours later. So once the 7 hours are over, you're back to the original one, which was on the tkufa of Nisan. But it's a half an hour later, and that's what he's saying over here. He says, right. He says, as in regards to the mazolas, you'll always be, the next kufa will always be only half an hour late than the previous mazel. So right, sometimes it means it'll be the same mazel, sometimes it'll be a different mazel. If the previous kufa was the beginning of the mazel, so the next kufa will be in the same mazel, will be half an hour. If the third kufa, which will be half an hour later, that will be already in the next mazel. So and so on, and that's how you go through all the kufas. It's just going to be mazel later, half a mazel later. That's what he's saying, and that has an effect in the astronomy and the effects which has on the hashpah, which it has on the world. Right. Shmuel said, "Ein lecha tkufas nisan shnefels b'tzedek." I'm not even sure which one tzedek is. One of the planets which is called tzedek. So the tkufas nisan, if it comes out to be on tzedek, if the tkufas nisan, when the exact moment of the tkufa happens to be the mazel which is called tzedek, maybe it's Saturn or something, so if the tkufa of nisan is going to be on the mazel of tzedek, so then it will break the trees. It's going to be strong winds, break the trees. The enchot kufas teves shnefeles b'tzedek, and you won't have a kufas teves if that the teves comes in a tzedek. She'enim yabesh zroim. It means it'll be the wheat and all that stuff which is going to be dry. And that is, when will it be dry? When this rule that if the tkufa of Nisan, if the tkufa of Tevis comes out to be on tzedek, which is I think Saturn or something like that, so then it'll be dry when the moon comes, the moil of Halavana of that Tevis is either in Levana or Tzedek. So the moil of Halavana, whenever that is, that can be any time of day. Now that moil of Halavana is also going to be in the mazel, because in whichever hour it is, like we say, the cycle goes, just continues to go throughout the 24 hours. The cycle goes of 7 mazolas. So if the moil of Halavana was either in the mazel of Levana or the mazel of Tzedek, so then it's and the Tkufas Tevis came out on Tzedek, So then you're going to end up having a bit of a drought. Your beshes drawing would be. Okay. I think we can go now to the welcome base. Ton Rabban Willand. Okay, so we spoke about when you have the cities, and when you have this making Tchum Shabbos, so you have the city is in the shape of a circle. The ship is the walled city. Let's say this walled city. So we have a walled city, and it's in the shape of a circle. So we are going to make a square out. So we will put the square around the circle, and that's how we're going to measure the Tchum. That's what we had that in the mission. Now, what do you do? Somebody who's Merabeya the city, he makes like a square tablet. And so, sorry, he makes a city like he makes a city like a square tablet, yeah. And in other words, is instead of you look at the city, instead of looking at the city as a circle, you make a square around that city. So you make a square around that city. So that is the city. And what about the Tchum? The Tchum is 2,000 amas from the city. So then for the Tchum, you make another square. So you can have a square outside this square. So then when you make the Tchum, you're going to have another this square outside this square, a much larger square. I mean, if you have the Gemara with the Rashi, there's a picture in Rashi, which is a bit of a good bit of a guide. So right. So it's going to be two squares. That means, let's just finish up. So now we're going to measure the Tchum. So when we measure the Tchum, we're also going to use, we're going to make a square around it. Now we'll make the square, the large square, which is the limit of the Tchum Shabbos. So when we're going to make for the corners, for the diagonal of the corners, we're not going to say 2,000 amas in the corner of, let's say, northeast corner. That is, we're going to take, we'll measure on the ground, we'll measure 2,000 amas. No, we don't do that. Because if you do that, you'll be missing, the corners won't be so large. And so what you do is, you measure not the corners, you measure 2,000, let's see how it says over here. Neshamash is obvious because you're missing the corners. So when it comes to, if it comes to measuring the middle of the city, let's say to the east or the north or the west, it's simple. You take from the middle of the city, you take a rope, you take and the rope, and you'll measure 2,000 amas from the middle of the city. Fine, you measure 2,000 amas in the middle of the city, and that is the limit of Tchum Shabbos. That's fine. But when you're coming to the corners, then you can't take the rope, which is 2,000 amas. So what do? You have to put in a square by the corner. Put in a square of 2,000 amas by 2,000 amas, which basically means that the diagonal of a square, which is 2,000 by 2,000 amas, is going to be 2,800 amas. So really, the distance from, say, the northeast of the city to the northeast of the big square, from the northeast of the small square, I should say, not from the city, the northeast of the small square to the northeast of the big square will actually be 2,800 amas. Because what you did was, that's the way the Gemara explains it, you take a square of 2,000 by 2,000 and you put that in the corner. And if you take a square of 2,000 by 2,000, the measurement of diagonal from one corner to the other corner is going to be 2,800. That's the way it is. So let's do it inside again if we need to. Maybe tabla merubas, you make a tablet square, you bring a square tablet, or a payim abba, a payim amma, And you put it in the corner by the slant. So because you put that block, so see, you're making it up blocks. You're making blocks. So you have one block directly northeast and south and west. There you put a block of 2,000 by 2,000. So you put your square blocks. Fine. Now what about the corners? Yes, put another one of those blocks for the corners. So you have we can say you have 4 blocks. One to the north, one to the east, one to south, one west. And then you have another 4 blocks which you're going to put in the corners. But the fact of the matter is, as a result of that, like I said before, 2,800 is going to be the diagonal. So you'll have on the corners, you'll have a lot of distance. Anyway, now, by the way, so we start off with the round city. So we started with a round city, which is a circle, the city in the shape of a circle. And there also with the city, we turned it into a corner. Now, when we took the city and we turned it into a corner, into a square, when we turned the city into a square, so when you take if you take the diagonal, like say from the center of the city, you go to when you take from the center of make it, if you draw a line from the center of the city to the corner of the square, so if you take a line you draw from the center of the city to any of the sides, northeast, southwest, you'll have the size of the city, wherever the city is. Let's say for argument's sake, the city is 2,000 by 2,000, or let's call it the diameter of the city is 2,000. So if the diameter of the city is 2,000, so the square of which you took the city, you made it into a square. Before you started making the tchum, first thing you did was you took the city and you made it believe as if it's like a square. So when you made believe as if it's a square, so the square was a square which each side has 2,000 amas. The city itself had a diameter of 2,000. But then later you made it a square, so each side of the square has 2,000 amas. So what happened was that you gained, if you are going from let's say from the center of the city, you're going to the corner, to one of the corners. When you're going to one of the corners, you've actually gained 400 amas over there. If you would just stop by the wall of the city, which is the shape of a circle, you'd be 400 amas short. So what happened over here? So the poil mamash from the wall of the city, if you're going to the diagonals, not if you're going straight north, east, south, west, but if you're going to the diagonals, you will end up having an extra 1,200 amas. Extra, I mean, above the 2,000 amas which you're supposed to have, because you took the city and in the corners you added 400 amas. That's what you did by making a square around it. That's what. And then by making the large square, and so between the small square and the large square we just mentioned before is also 800 amas above the 2000s, because it's about 2000. So in total you have gained, should we say artificially, I don't know what to call it, we have gained 1,002 amas, which by squaring, by working in squares, okay, this is the correct way probably, by working in squares, we have gained 1,002 amas when you go to the corners of the city, as above, more than you have if you go directly northeast, southwest. I think that covers it. Okay, you put it to the corners. So the city itself, when the city, the increase in the city by the corners is 400 amas. The tchumen, the larger one, the larger square, which is the square of the tchum, was how much do you gain on the corners? You gained 800 amas. The kind of the kind, Ushmenem is the kind. Nimtzu ha'iru tchumen. So if you make the total of the city and the tchum is taken elf masayim, the kind of elf masayim the kind. Okay, I think that's quite understandable. Okay. Rabbi says, yeah, so it's all good, but we did not say actually the size. I mentioned the size of the city because look at the Gemara before, but the Gemara didn't say the size of the city. It just says 400 and 400. Where do you get these calculations from? So to have all the calculation to fit. That works only if the city to get the amount of 1,200. So that only works if the city itself is diameter of 2,000. Yeah, so it only works with a city which is 2,000 amas by 2,000. It's a circle city, and diameter is 2,000. Like I said, make a square 2,000. Otherwise, the calculations will be slightly different because the gain in the city will be more or less depending on the size of the city. Okay. Tanya, Tchum or Eruvin. Okay, now we've got the Levim. They also they had also 2,000 amas. So the Levim, the cities of Levim. So it says in the pasuk, the Levim they should have 2,000 amas, which belongs to the city of Levim. And the first thousand. So okay, so they have the city of Levim. Then you have the first 1,000 amas, which goes around which surrounds the city. That first 1,000 amas, you're not allowed to do anything. It's called migrosh. Migrosh, you can't do anything. You can't use it. The second 1,000 amas, that belongs to Levim, and they can use it for fields, planting, and all that, whatever their needs are. So now we make a few calculations in relation to the Arei Levim. So Tchum Arei Levim, Alpine amas. It's also 2,000 amas. Okay. Say mehem, take away 1,000 amas migrosh, 1,000 amas for migrosh. So migrosh, that is which they have to leave just plain, leave it empty, and it should, and you can't plant it. Nimtza migrosh should be. So that comes out the migrosh is going to be a quarter. That the whole area, a quarter of it is spent on this migrosh. And the rest is so this ukromim. And this Gemara is going to try and work out how to get the calculation of Rabbi. How exactly does it work? The migrosh, the area of the migrosh is Rabbi. Okay. Before that, let's see what the Gemara says before that. Before the Gemara starts working it out. No, and Emily, from where do we know that? The Prophet says in the pasuk, "Mikir ha'ir v'chutzala, 1,000 amah sovim." That from the wall of the city and outside, there should be 1,000 amas around. 1,000 amas around, which should be a migrosh. As Omra Torah, Savev ha'ir, surround the city be'elef. Is surrounded with 1,000 amas of migrosh. Nimtza migrosh revia. Okay, so therefore so it's a pasuk, and that's the so Gemara says revia palga have it. It's half. 1,000 amas is migrosh, and the other 1,000 is the tchum, which belongs to them, which belongs to them, and they can plant and everything. So it's half is for migrosh, where they don't plant, and the other half is for planting. So why is it? How do you get the cheshbon quarter? Palgahavi, yeah. Omar Rav Bar Adam sorry, Omar Rav said Bar Adam Meshecha. He was the one in charge of the tchumen and all that. He was Meshecha, something with measurements, etc. So this is Bar Ada, that's his name, Meshecha. Asbury, he explained me. Mashkachas labemosa to have a tray out that if you want that it should work out that the mikro should be a quarter. So let's start with a city. How big is the city? So because if the city is a different size, these calculations are going to be different. So if the city is mashkach labemosa, the city to have a tray outfit. So if it's 2,000 by 2,000, the city tchum kamahave. So then, how much is the tchum? Now, tchum means the to the north, south, east. So directly north, directly south, directly east, and directly west. So the tchum is, like I mentioned before, when we're making the square for the tchum. So we're making the square for the tchum. So let's look at the larger square. That each side of the larger square is made up of, let's say, call it 3 boxes, and 3 boxes. The one box which is exactly equivalent or to the side of the city. That's the city is 2,000 amas, so you have a box of 2,000 by 2,000, 2,000 by 2,000 on the east, north, southwest. You have 4 boxes like that, because the city is 2,000, and you have 2,000 distance from the city. No, so that's a box. So therefore, you have these 4. Should we call them boxes of 2,000 by 2,000? Now, 2,000 by 2,000 is um, is the 2 times 2 is 4, so it's 4,000 4. So each one of them, the area of each one of the area of each one of the, how do you say area? Area, you have square meters. You can the area. It depends what name should we use for the area. The Gemara here uses for the area square 1,000 amos. So how many squares of 1,000 amos do you have? So therefore, how many squares of 1,000 amos of you can? That's the way I can describe the area in whichever way you want. I mean, mathematically, it's going to be correct anyway. It's just a different way of describing it. So each of the squares, since it's 2,000 by 2,000, so you can put inside each one of these squares 4 squares of 1,000 square amos. 4 squares of 1,000 square amos, or 1,000 by 1,000, whichever way you want to call it. So you have 4 squares of 1,000 square amos in each one of these 4 boxes. So 4 times that is 16. Oh, come on. So in these boxes, which are by directly north or directly south, and directly east or directly west, you end up with 16 boxes of 1,000 amos by 1,000 amos, and you have 16 of them. Okay. Then, okay, what about the diagonals? I don't know what's called by the corners. By the corners, so you have to put in another 4 to each corner. There's 4 corners which have been left empty right now. We've not discussed that. So you put another 4, so it's another 16. So the total area is going to be 32 squares of 1,000 amos by 1,000 amos. Oh, so that's it. So let's see. So let's. How much is the tchum? Tchum means those squares directly north and directly south, not the ones by the quarter. Shitzer 16. Kronos can have it. Shitzer again 16. 16 means 16 squares of 1,000 amos or 1,000 amos. Dal Tamanya. Now we're going to work out. So that's 2,000 by 2,000. Now we're going to take out we have to take away the migrosh. We have to separate how much migrosh and how much of it is how much of it is migrosh and how much of it is the where they can plant. So let's see. Dal Tmanya the tchumen. So the migrosh you'll have on the squares which are directly northeast southwest, the squares which are directly northeast southwest. So if you go only 1,000, you only have 2 squares. So talking for the migrosh, right? That's what we use for the migrosh. So for the migrosh, we're only going to have So it's from those square blocks, which are directly northeast, southeast, west. We end up with 8,000. It's not 8,000. 8 boxes of 1,000 by 1,000. 8 boxes. Now, for the corner ones, most of the corner is going to be from the tchum. It's only 1,000, only a square. So the corner ones, they all have 4 boxes, but only one of them is going to be migrosh, the closest one, because the migrosh is only 1,000 by 1,000. That's the square. One square of 1,000 by 1,000 is migrosh, the corner, and the rest is not. So you end up, so come out, so the Abba the Kronos, added the 4 Kronos, come have a traces. 12. So you see, you have 32. 32 is the amount of outside the city that you have. You have 32 outside the city, and you have only 12 out of the 32. Only 12 out of the 32 is 12 out of 32 is migrosh. So the outside the city, you have 32. So the Gemara says, Revere, is that calculated to be a quarter? 12 out of 32 is a quarter. How do you do that? It's more than a third. 12 times 3 is 36. So if you say 12 out of 32, why do you say 12 out of 32 out of the 32 squares of 1,000 amos by 1,000 amos? So 12 of them it's more than a third. Asimar says, I see our board the must show their life. Okay, include the city itself. The city also has 4 squares, because the city itself is 2,000 by 2,000. So we added another city, add that in as well. So now so it's 36. So it's 36. We have 36 squares, including the city of what's it called? 36 squares of 1,000 amos, and only 12 of them are migrosh. So The Gemara says, well, so we're still not sorted out. Arba the Moses Shodelai, that was to what was I explaining before. And Gemara says, Akati Tilsa have it. Okay, now you're a third. How do you get water? I say, answer the Misaras Beribua Kamar. What do you think? You talk about the city square. The square is round. Bigula Kamar. The city is round. So therefore, since the city is round, and therefore the Migrosh, when it comes to the Tchum, we made squares, and we made the outside square, and we ended up having 36. But when it comes to the Migrosh, if the city is round, we don't square, the Migrosh is not squared. The Migrosh works exactly by the way the city works. It works exactly in the same shape of the city. So now take this Migrosh. Now, what did we calculate before? We calculated before that the Migrosh is 12, right? But we calculated the Migrosh 12 because the Migrosh was in the shape of a square. We squared the city, we squared the Chum, we squared everything. And so the Migrosh said, but the city, the Emes, is not a square. Yes, you can make it a square, you believe it's a square in order to make it Chum. But the Emes, the city is not a square, it's a round city. And therefore, if it's a round city, the Migrosh also, this whole business of squaring doesn't affect the Migrosh. So since the whole business of squaring doesn't affect the Migrosh, so it's also round. Okay. So the kids were talking about the city's a circle, and then you have the outer circle of the Migrosh. Now, the outer circle of the Migrosh is, of course, it's 1,000 amas. So instead of a square, we are dealing with a circle. How much is a circle, the area of a circle? How much is the area of a circle less than the area of a square? That means to say, if you have a circle and you have a square outside, so there's a square outside the circle, or the circle inside the square, so they have the circle inside the square. So how much is the area? But how much is the area of the square larger than the area of the circle? But how much? The circle is 3/4 of this is 3/4. It's a quarter more. The circle is 3/4 of the square. So the circle is how much? 3/4 of the square. So we've made our calculations with the square. We found the Migrosh to be 12. But the city is round. So the M is only 3/4 of 12. 3/4 of 12 is 9. No, how much is the area of everything, the city and everything, the total area? 36. Exact. So we have our quarter. So is that the Migrosh, which is 9 BMS, so it's going to be a quarter of the whole area with the city, the whole of the city of Levin, which is a diameter of 2,000, is going to have a quarter of the area with the Kum is going to be Migrosh. Let's see. We're going to say. I can't tell Sahaba. So give it to myself. Misaros beribu come a big bull come. We're talking about the circle. Come beribu yasal ego revia. How much is the square more than the circle revia? Down revia. Now you take away a quarter from the 12. We made a calculation. Calculations were fine, but we made it on a square. No, but it's a circle. So partial. So take away a quarter. Partial tisha. You left with tisha. With tisha, with plus the shisha, and 9 from 36 is revia. The quarter. So we're done. Okay. So, but here, this calculation, we have to add, said that the total area which belongs to the city, we have to add the city, the Tchum, with the city, and the Migrosh. So the quarter of that is the Migrosh. But we have to add the city in, the area of the city, we have to add it into, to what's it called, to this area which belongs to Levin. Now, Abaya is going to say something different, and he's going to say without the area of the city. He says, if we're going to give a slightly different scenario and say, according to this scenario, we can say that the Bryce is talking about this scenario, which Abaya is saying. He says, you could do the other one. He has no objection to what was before the Rabbi, but the Abaya is going to say you can have another scenario, and you can say the Mishnah is talking about Abaya's scenario. And according to Abaya's scenario, the Milo, which should be an unbiased scenario, is that you don't have to add the area of the city to make it a quarter. Even without the area of the city, just the Tchum and the Migrosh itself, so the Tchum with the Migrosh. And the Migrosh by itself, is the Migrosh is a quarter of the total if the Tchum and the Migrosh together. When is that? Mashkach is most have an alpha by alpha tchumen. If the city is 1,000 by 1,000, if the city is 1,000 by 1,000, so then tchumen. So since the city is smaller and also it's in a circle, you can have what the other will say later. So it's alpha by alpha. Tchumen can have a tmanya. So the tchumen, how much is 8? We know what tchumen are. The square blocks northeast southwest. Corona is hammered, the squares shitzer. So it's 16. So at the end of the day, how much are we? Because the tchumen, northeast southwest, is going to be 2,000 by 1,000. You see, what happens is when you make when you have the square of you have the smaller city, 1,000 by 1,000. So the tchumen on the one side of the tchumen, directly northeast southwest. So you have to go 2,000 amos to get to the end of the tchumen. But what should I call it? The width of it, or the height of it, I don't know how to call it. The width is only 1,000 because the city is only 1,000. So it's 1,000 by. So all these tchumen ones, those squares are rectangles, not squares. They're rectangles of which is half the size of where the other city. So you end up instead of 16, you have 8. The corners anyway going to be 2,000 by 2,000. That's how it is. But yeah, and so the kids are dal arba the tchumen, arba the corners. So take away. Then when it comes to the migrash, so take away the 4 from the tchumen because it's only half of the tchumen is going to be, which so it's only 4, and the arba the corners, and also 4 from the corners. Kava hamnes. So therefore, how much are you left with? Tmanya. So therefore, the migrash is only 8 squares of 1,000 by 1,000. So Gemara says, Tilsa have no. So still didn't get a quarter. It's a third. So he says, Me slavas b'rivua kama b'gula kama. We also talk about circle. Also talk about circle. So come therefore, once we circle it, so therefore we take away 25% of that. So we take away 25%. So how much do we say it was? 8. So 25% of 8, we take off 25%, the quarter of 8, we take off, that's going to be 6. A 6 from 24, that's a quarter, and that is without adding the area of the city. So we have learned to Kimtus. Sorry for extending it, for being a bit late. But, thank you for participating.